everyone, welcome to Adrian Snary Unlearning, and today I'm joined by Jae. Jae, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely you're someone I've wanted to talk to you for a long while, and we've known each other a little bit through some different ceremonial type things that we've done in the past, and so we thought we'd have a good chance to sit down today and have a really good chat about some of the things that you're up to and have been doing, especially over the last 12 months or so, which is seeing you really put yourself out there, I guess, to the wider world. So
Absolutely, yeah, a bit of an understatement, I guess.
Did you have any idea that this is sort of where you'd be now as far as what you've done over the last 12 months, I guess?
No, not at all. I mean, I did have a psychic tell me, like, at the beginning of last year, like, yeah, you're going to go to Europe this year. And, like, I just started my PhD and, was working through that. Or it was a year into my PhD. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I'm supposed to be doing, like, academic kind of based stuff.
Sure. I've got my life sorted.
I'm ordered and I know what I want. And
sure.
then had some spanners thrown in the work, and all of a sudden I was touring Europe with the Liberators, which was an incredible opportunity and just so eye-opening in many ways.
Sure. And tell us about your work with the Liberators, and I guess for anyone out there that hasn't heard of Liberators, which it's probably not too many people. They became quite, can we say, infamous for the train dance clip that went, viral, and definitely a few other things and actions that you guys have implemented. But could you tell us perhaps a little bit about Liberators and also your role with them?
Yeah, sure. So, the Liberators is just a group of creative, like-minded individuals that want to show the world that beyond our differences there's love and humanity. Mm-hmm. So we create social acts of freedom to kind of connect people and bring them back to that sense of unity again. Mm-hmm. So yes, the dancing on the train is the one that kind of really just projected us out into the wide world, and that is what we're well known for. But all of our videos are with a message. So that was after observing how society is and seeing that when we get on public transport, a lot of the time it just becomes people shut off from the world. They're in their phones, they're reading, which is also fine. But it's like, are we also isolating ourselves from the world? So that train dance was like, well, if we can start a dance party in a train, why can't you start a conversation?
Sure.
So for a while I set the intention for myself of every time I was getting on the train to go and talk to two people that I didn't know. And,
yeah, nice.
And it was really interesting just to watch people's reactions, because I'm not exactly very threatening looking, but for some people it was so intimidating. I'm just wanting to have a conversation. Like, I don't want anything from you. Like,
they've got that look on their face, like, oh shit, someone's talking to me.
Absolutely. And maybe because in society, the people that get up on trains now are sometimes crazy, like, so that you only have that association with people getting up, or busking or wanting money or trying to sell you something. It's just like, no, I just genuinely want to have a conversation with you because, you're a human being as well, and everyone's got a story to tell. Yeah,
definitely.
So, that's, one of the things that we do on top of it. So that's the social experiment side of things. And then we also implement that sense of trust and connection in workshops and interactive DJ sets as well. So
nice. For the public sphere, for people to interact with and come into.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the thing is, like, when you're in a, public setting, sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone can be a little bit too intense for people. So, if you bring it down into a workshop setting where you're maybe, a little bit feeling a bit more safer and secluded, you can drop more into that vulnerability. So then you have that sense of courage and strength and know yourself as that, bigger person. So then when you go out into public, you might want to take those actions which you might have been scared to take before.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and it's an ironic thing really how, I've really been thinking about and contemplating this for a while now, like how because I was just telling you how I've studied anthropology, and it's all about how cultures and societies grow and mesh and move together. And as we're sort of all becoming more condensed into city living, I'm sure you've heard it before, the bigger the city, like the more isolated we can feel as individuals. And we quite often do walk around, and instead of, when you go to a country town or some sort of small village, and this can have its good and bad points, but everyone and you can say hello. And I mean, a disadvantage of that is, of course, like everyone knows everyone's business, and which isn't necessarily a good thing. But there's definitely a lot more openness and connectivity. But when you come into a city, it's not like that at all. And we can we can walk past someone on the street without even acknowledging them or saying hello, which again I feel has its reasons, possibly based on the fact there is so many people. Like if you had to say hello to everyone you walk past, you'd get pretty sick and tired of it by the end of the day. But there's something, I think, greater than that going on, and it just it really does leave a disconnect, I feel. And we needed to really facilitate that connection. Again, we really do need to get out of our comfort zones, like you said, and really put ourselves out there and just become inclusive, even just as individuals or as groups like Liberators is doing. And I just think it's both fantastic and fascinating what you guys are doing, because it's something that really comes at a time, like it's like the perfect timing, like where we are in the world at the moment and where we're heading. Like we're moving away from that element of being fearful of the stranger and all that, and into being compassionate towards those we don't know. Yeah.
And it comes also down to that compassion for yourself as well. I think a large fear that we have that stops us is that idea of having to have it all together and look perfect and, that edited version of ourselves. And that comes up, with technology and media, is because we can hide behind a screen, we can edit, what we say, and not stumble over our words or say things like that. So, it's coming back down to that as well, that we do have the liberation to just express ourselves and allow whatever we want to come up in that moment and not judge ourselves for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the best way you guys were able to exemplify that was with do you call it eye gazing or eye staring?
It's kind of interchangeable, but eye gazing is usually.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I thought that was a fascinating thing you guys did.
Yeah, absolutely. So the eye gazing experiment was going into a public setting with a sign saying, "Where has the human connection gone? Share 1 minute's eye gazing to find out." And then just setting up in a public space, whether it be standing or sitting or having tables and chairs, and just inviting members of the public to connect if they felt drawn to it. With everything that we do, there's never a pressure or anything like that to be like that you're wrong if you don't do this, because we want to respect where everyone is at. So, and at first we were like, is this going to be too confronting for people, like to actually want to connect however they are? And the first time we did it, we had like people lining up, like it was just such a beautiful and profound experience. And then seeing it then cascade into like a global experiment as well was just so touching. And whether that be like being there on the day and actually sitting there with each individual, or going over the photos or seeing the video, like all of those elements capture how every single person has beauty within them, and you just have to allow yourself to acknowledge that beauty.
And it's really I feel having that person across from you, or that person really does act as a mirror. Like you could say our whole reality, everything that we see and witness and feel, taste, touch is really just a mirror of us. And when you stare intensely into someone else's eyes, it can mirror back what's going on inside of you through the even like call it the divinity of the other person. I never really sort of thought about that before or done anything like that before. It was like the first Blazing Swan a couple of years ago. And this woman that I'd never met before. We were just on top of this rock, and she was singing, and she stopped singing, and then I was just like, wow, that was just incredible. And I had my sunglasses, I remember at the time. I just started like looking at her and just like, thank you. And we just kept looking at each other. I was like, oh shit. So I took my sunnies off, and it was one of the most. Then we like stayed locked like that for probably a good 3 or 4 minutes, and to this day it was one of the most profound experiences I've had in my life. Like no drugs involved, no nothing. It was just this connection of us like mirroring each other, so we could both like see not only the other person but see our true selves as well. And it was just an amazing gift. So if you guys are able to do that and facilitate that on, you did it on a local level in Perth, but then it spread worldwide. It's just an amazing gift to give, countless people.
Absolutely. And you've actually just reminded me of a similar experience that I had before this experiment had been created, because this idea of eye gazing is, quite ancient in regards to like the Tantra realm of things. But actually holding eye contact for a good like 20 minutes, half an hour with someone, it just completely diffuses any sense of illusion of separation.
Sure.
And I did it once with Stu Watkins, and it was just completely profound. And your heartbeat starts to sync up, your breath starts to sync up. It melts away everything other than that present moment, which is so beautiful. But I mean, obviously for, when you're in a public setting, you want to make it easily accessible and not too scary for people to drop into, like maybe for yogis and things like that. They're more like, okay, let's do it. But for a lot of people, they were shaking because of like nerves. Yeah. And that is so humbling. Like they're fearing that we're going to judge them or not going to accept them. But if anything, that is one of the most humbling like experiences, is to know that that person feels safe enough to sit down even when they're shaking and so scared, just to have that connection with you, and we had people crying sometimes just out of like pure gratitude. One thing that really, really touched me is, 1 minute you've got a child sitting in front of you, the next minute you've got a woman with a hijab, next minute you've got like a grandmother, you've got everyone from all walks of life. Sure. And it's just so much beauty. Like, that's all I can say. There's this beauty in every single person, and I hope that experience, allowed them to realize that as well. Other people are going to accept them and try and find that beauty in them. Sure, yeah, and like find and understand the humanness of us all. It doesn't matter our sex, religion, cultural background, like that we are all really just human, and we all feel the same. We all, we have obviously varying experiences, but more or less along the same lines, the same common denominator. And for the longest time, and it's still occurring quite strong at the moment, there is always, we're sort of forced into a separation as well, like with warring against each other, and like our governments are generally the ones that are facilitating that, to like, okay, that's the enemy over there. They're bad for us. So, you don't have anything to do with them. We don't want you anything to do with them. But then when you get past all that bullshit and you do spend some time with someone who might have a completely different background to you, it's like, oh, wow, there's no difference between you and I. None at all. I remember the first time I went overseas, the first instinct of that I had, it was 2005, so I was 25, and I had a stopover in Dubai, at Dubai Airport. I was just there for a couple of hours. And, Dubai Airport, have you been there before? It's just like a hub of people from all around the world. And I went there, and I was like, oh, wow, like just people walking around from all different walks of life. And I was like, that was the first moment I really realised that how racism is just bullshit. Like I grew up, in Perth, white, middle class, very, very sort of set type, in Perth, there's not much diversification. But so I definitely I think I had my, there's element of bigotry there, I suppose, would be the best way to describe it. But when I was put into an environment like that, where I could just actually physically and emotionally feel the humanness of it all, I was just like, oh, wow, all the bullshit I've been fed about separateness and how we're all different, it's just all an illusion. All an illusion. And that sense of fear, like it definitely reminds me of how one of our other experiments is, being used to dissolve those ideas of boundaries was the trust experiment. So that's when you blindfold yourself in a public space again with a sign saying, I trust you, do you trust me, let's hug. I mean, Pete originally did this in Barcelona when he was living over there. So, for him, it was coming from Australia. He was like this white boy, saying, will you accept me because I'm a foreigner? Like,
sure.
Will you trust me? So, it can go the other way as well. But we originally teamed up with ICEA when Pete was back.
With who, sorry?
ICEA, it's a foundation for reconciliation for Aboriginals in
Oh,
Australia.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So a dear friend of mine, Lockie, was one of the founders of ICEA.
Sure.
And it was after we saw a stat that was saying, only 12 or 13% of non-Indigenous Australians trust Aboriginals.
Right.
And that's like, wow.
That's really low.
It's very low, and yes, there's so many of us saying, let's make that stand for reconciliation. But it's like, okay, where are our words and where are our actions? And how can we facilitate that change? So, we teamed up with ICEA, and Jazeera decided to step forward and was willing to be, the Aboriginal girl that stood forward and did that experiment.
Yeah, powerful.
Which was so powerful, and there's been so much, positive messages spread after that, which is so beautiful, and has also then inspired others down the track. So when the bombings happened in Paris recently, a Muslim got up and had that same sign, but was like, I'm a Muslim and people mistake me as a terrorist. Right. I trust you, do you trust me?
Sure.
Let's hug.
Yeah.
So all of these experiments can be adapted because, as you said before, we are all the same, and there is actually no segregation regardless of our color of our skin or our background, our age, our gender, anything like that.
That was just a brilliant that was a really brilliant social experiment, I really thought, because the Aboriginal people are often much maligned in our white Caucasian society, and a lot of it is just truly unfounded. And to get that message out there, I think was just incredible. And that also, just going back to what you were talking about with the Islamic people, and we had that they originally called it a terrorist attack, but when just some guy went berserk in Sydney, was it last year, and shot up in a cafe, and just happened to be a Muslim man, but it turned out that he was battling mental illness and etc. And one of the brilliant things about technology and social media is the connectivity that it helps to facilitate. And do you remember they had because then a lot of people, all of a sudden we have that fear of Muslim people, such as after the French thing as well. But then that hashtag on Twitter came out, I'll ride with you. And it was basically just us Australians being able to show our support for just that average Islamic person out there and say, we're not in fear. We don't fear you. The media might be telling us that we should fear you, but we don't. And we didn't have that voice. We didn't have that ability to be able to say that even 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's brilliant now.
Yeah, and I think it always comes down to our perceptions as well. Because, you kind of have these smoke screens or these lenses, and if you do stereotype someone that they are going to be this way, they are going to be a terrorist, or they are going to
just because of the way they look,
just because of the way they look, of course, then you don't really provide much other opportunity other than that person living out your kind of prophecy.
Sure.
You know, and that's not going to make them feel much better either. Or they're walking around feeling cautious all the time, like they're walking on eggshells because they can't. If they do one thing wrong, they're going to be then stereotyped as a terrorist or a bad person. It's like, we're all human. We all make mistakes sometimes, and you shouldn't have to fear or feel like you have to separate yourself because you're going to be judged. It's like, no, we're bigger and greater than that, and we can transcend those fears. So
definitely, and I really feel that's what's happening at the moment. We are all, as individuals, transcending our fears, which is they're not working on a collective level, and and so that's another topic I really would like to discuss is your experience with that. You went to Europe last year and you spent some time, and I think you were in England at the time when you shot a video of you doing something where you were just in your complete vulnerability and something where you had to like really dig to the core. So yeah, could you perhaps tell the audience, Jae, a little bit about what happened there?
Absolutely.
And perhaps also the lead up to it as well. What made you decide you wanted to do that?
Inspired, So the self-acceptance video is the one that you're talking about. It's had such an incredible spread and impact, which I'm very humbled and grateful for. But so the idea, what I actually did first was I went into Piccadilly Circus and blindfolded myself and undressed down to my underwear with a sign saying, "I'm standing for anyone who's gone through an eating disorder or self-esteem issue like me. Draw a love heart on my body to support self-acceptance." So the lead up before that, I had gone through an eating disorder. I went to an all-girls school. So, there are pressures around looking good, especially around ball time. Everyone's going on crazy diets. They want to fit into the smallest dress and look beautiful and like a princess, which is fun and beautiful as well, but also depleted my sense of self-worth as well.
Right.
And that idea that I was just comparing myself to other people. So that's where, bulimia started for me. Although, the relationship that I had with myself and that kind of self-love, self-hatred battle had started earlier than that, but that was the first time that, it was physically presenting itself.
Okay.
And then, it was kind of on and off for a couple of years. But then I went further. I promised my partner at the time that I wasn't going to, this is probably my early 20s, I wasn't going to throw up again. But then I countered that by reducing what I was eating and exercising a lot. So then I kind of fell into my anorexic element. So, I mean, all of those physical representations are just coming back to the same message that I couldn't love myself and I wasn't accepting myself exactly as I was. So that was kind of the journey beforehand. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like everything is like perfect and I have all the answers and I'm always in love with myself, because I have my days, I have my moments,
like everyone does,
like everyone, you know. So the self-acceptance, and that's why I made it not just I'm standing for eating disorders, but self-acceptance as well, because I think everyone in some way gets confronted by their expectations of what they think they're supposed to be. Worthiness
of themselves.
And it doesn't have to be like body image. That can be like what career, what relationship you should be in.
Intelligence levels.
Any kind of label that we can attach to ourselves. So, and that's why I was putting in the self-acceptance.
Sure.
That, it was something that was very dear to me and something that I'd experienced myself. So very charged emotionally.
Yeah.
And then I watched a TEDx talk by Amanda Palmer.
I've been meaning to watch that.
Of the Dresden Dolls.
Yeah, I love her.
It was just so touching and so inspiring.
Right. What was the name of what was the title of that talk again?
The Art of Asking. The Art
of Asking, that's right. Yeah, that's right. And it sort of follows the theme of, because she got in the shit about the crowdfunding thing and all that. I think that was sort of what helped.
Yeah, absolutely. But for her, it was that idea that, her record label was saying, you've failed with this album because it's only, I can't remember how many things that it's sold, but, it's still sold quite a lot. If you can sell one album, you still touch one person's life type thing.
Definitely, Could have been her best work, but like had less sales, but it's deemed economically or by business as being a failure.
Yeah. So she stepped back from that kind of commercialism and instead was like, well, okay, I'm not going to charge for any of my music, but instead at the end of like my performances or shows, I want to ask my fans, for donations or do crowdfunding and things like that. So because when people are asked if they want to contribute, they're actually most of the time more than willing to. For sure. And it's when people are told, oh, this is what you have to pay or this is what you have to give. Yeah. That's when people, for some reason, feel a little bit more like they don't have control or they haven't had a choice in it.
Sure.
So yeah, so that was part of her theme, and one of the ways that she gave back to her fans was by stripping down naked in Berlin and allowing her fans to write whatever they wanted on her.
Yeah, I've seen that video. Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really beautiful and really
Yeah,
powerful. And
definitely.
yeah, I went to bed that night and I was like, I wonder if that could be like linked into self-acceptance, you know? And then just all of a sudden, all of these like ideas were coming straight to me of like, draw love hearts and, you know, write a sign and all this kind of stuff. That was even before we knew we were going to Europe. I had that thought like months beforehand.
Sure.
And I'd gone to Pete and I'd gone to Michelle, like my best friend, and told them the idea, and they're like, I don't know, Jay, it's pretty risky. Like,
it's a big one.
It's, you know, it's being pretty vulnerable. Like, we'll support you, but, you know, it's pretty crazy. I was like, yeah, well, it's, you know, that's how you make impact, is like stepping out of your own comfort zone.
Definitely.
And then, yeah, then we decided we were going to Europe, and we crowdfunded our way. So I had to then apply, you know, some of the knowledge from that TEDx talk again of like, okay, asking for money is actually really hard sometimes. And especially with the work that we do, we don't ask for money after social experiments or things like that, because then that robs the idea that we're doing it just to create connection.
Yeah.
And so that was an interesting experience. But yeah, you know, we got to Europe, which was, you know, just amazing. And yeah, we were in London for 10 days, and on the last day that we were there, well, I'd kind of had the idea when we were there. I was like, I think I'm supposed to be doing, you know, this experiment here, because...
Oh, so you didn't go there thinking that you were going to do it?
No,
okay,
not at all. Yeah. When I got over there, I was like, it's going to have a really big impact. Originally, I'd planned, I was like, oh, I'll do it in Forest Chase, in Perth, you know. Okay. I know that area, I know that scene. But it's like, well, okay, if I'm really like putting myself in the deep end and like I'm not going to know anyone. I'm not going to have like that support of, you know, if I did it in Perth, I probably would have had a whole group of the Liberators, probably some of my friends
surrounding you. Yeah.
You know, they would have been there to support me versus we were in London. Yes, we'd met a couple of people, but on that day that we did the experiment, well, the night before we'd had a bit of a later night, so we hadn't actually slept that much, probably, you know, 2 or 3 hours or something like that. And we'd woken up and been like, oh no, maybe we're not going to do it. And I was like, no, this is the last day that we're in London. The last 4 new countries that we're going to don't really have English as their first language, so it's most relevant to do this in London. Plus the amount of like advertisement and, you know, fashion that occurs in London is very, very large. So I was like, it has to be here. So yeah, myself, Pete, the founder of the Liberators, and Elliot, our videographer and cinematographer, was like, yeah, okay, let's go, let's do it. So we made our way to Piccadilly Circus, and yeah, it was just the 3 of us there. I remember walking up, getting into the space and being like, oh no, it was on a Sunday, lunchtime, like so many families, so many people of like ethnic backgrounds, you know, there were a lot of like Muslims and people in hijabs, and I was like, I'm about to, you know, strip off half naked. This is going to be so like inappropriate for a lot of these people. And yet when I saw the footage afterwards, all of those people were coming up and drawing love hearts, and it was like, oh wow, like it, again, that message of self-love, self-acceptance can transcend any like barrier or background or any fear of judgment that I thought beforehand. It was just completely released when someone can see you legitimately being vulnerable. They're more than happy to, you know, help support you and uplift you. Sure, as a fellow human being. Yeah. So what were your thoughts, or what ran through your head the moment you first felt like a felt pen on your skin? What went through your mind? And what had been going on in your mind in the seconds or moments leading up to that as well? If you can answer that in a 2-part question. Yeah, absolutely. So beforehand, like, I was so incredibly nervous. Like, you know, I'm an actress and a dancer, and I'd being confronted with that kind of element of nerves before, and had usually been fine, but this was like on a whole new level.
Yeah.
My whole body was shaking, and it was actually quite funny if you look at some of the photos. When I was writing the actual message on the board, I was so nervous. One, the actual letters are so shaky, but two, I'd written issue ISSEE, like completely forgot the U, and then it actually stood up, went to turn around, I was like, oh, I've spelled it wrong, and then quickly ran back, and Pete's like, what are you doing? I was like, I spelled it wrong. So I was so nervous beforehand, and then when I got into that moment, I was just like, okay, just gonna do it, go for it. And it felt like hours, and it actually did take a couple of minutes. I think people were just registering what the hell I was even doing.
What's this woman doing here?
Yeah, especially if people were coming kind of from walking behind, they would have just seen someone standing in their underwear. And it's like, well, what is going on?
Sure.
So all of the fears were coming up of I'm not going to have any love hearts written on me, and then all the kind of self-love issues were coming up, something's wrong with me if no one writes anything on me, and maybe I'm doing this for the wrong reasons, and is this appropriate for this area, and all those elements were coming up. And then all of a sudden someone because they were in my hands, the pens, I felt someone pull one out. I just broke into tears. That's why I was mic'd up the whole time as well. And I remember people were making comments to me, for the first 10 minutes. And because I'd been crying, I was just a mess. I couldn't even get words out. I was so choked up. And the first time I actually was able to say thank you, my voice is breaking and clogged up. And it was just crazy. And then as time went on, I think I was standing there for probably about 35 minutes. But after a period of time, I was able to sometimes hold a little bit of a conversation with people. But I was also, aware that you didn't want to have a deep and meaningful when you couldn't even see the other person.
Sure.
And some people were like, oh, I'm gonna wait around, how long are you gonna be standing here for? So I had people waiting afterwards to kind of have a talk to me. I had some journalists come up and things like that, wanting to hear my story, and got in contact with me afterwards, especially after the video came out as well. And then obviously the cops came up as well. So at first, I'd been standing, I don't know how long I'd been standing there, but all of a sudden I hear it's, you right there, love? Is someone actually looking out for you? And at first I thought, they're just going to call this off. All they wanted to do was just make sure someone was kind of looking over after me, and they wanted to make me aware that they were looking over and making sure no one was doing
safe.
Anything inappropriate, and that I was safe. And it was just fascinating to see those people of authority, again, more than willing to share that message of self-acceptance and self-love, which was again, dropping those labels of, what your role entails. Because I think it was actually the day before we'd recreated the trust experiment in London. And we'd just finished that experiment, and we were walking down the street. We were just near Buckingham Palace. And there was a cop walking along, and I was like, I'm going to ask the cop if I can have a hug. And I'd gone up to the cop, and I was like, this is what our intention, this is the experiment that we've been doing, would I be able to give you a hug? And he was like, no, I think that would be completely inappropriate for me to give you a hug. I was like, okay, I completely respect that, if that's your wishes. But it was like, wow, okay, that's the role that you have to fit, is you can't even have a connection with another person. And yet after the self-acceptance video, the cop actually asked me if he could give me a hug.
Oh, right, nice. It wasn't the same cop, was it?
No,
different
it was
cop.
different cop. Right. But they were, I wish I could actually get in contact with those two cops that were there on the day, because they were just incredible, and such, I felt very protected and very held by them, which was very, very nice.
Nice. Yeah, it was just an incredible thing that you did, Jay. And I guess for a lot of people, it didn't just open up dialogue for those issues of self-acceptance and eating behaviours and things like that, but also opened up dialogue of who we are as human beings and like the nurturing capabilities that we have and like loving capabilities. And that's something we've seen through each one of the videos that Liberators have put out, which I don't believe was really around before that. Like I don't really think there was really anything substantial which showed the real connectivity of us as human beings and the nurturing attitudes that we really do have for each other, which is quite different from what media would allow us to believe. So yeah, just really powerful what you did, and just so much respect for you, doing it. And what was the outcome both for those issues? I don't really like using the word issue, but for those topics, I should say. Yeah. So yeah, what was the outcome for those topics, and also the outcome for you in the days, weeks afterwards? Like, how did you feel on a subjective level about what you had done and about yourself as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was running on a high, like, for weeks afterwards. Like, just, one, I'd known myself then as someone who was willing to not be scared of the label and, take ownership. Yes, I have gone through an eating disorder, and I'm not going to try and hide that or, try to be a victim for it either with.
Sure.
That's not the stand that I was making at all. It was just like, this is what I've gone through, and I can, have compassion and understand what other people are going through, and know that there's hope on the other side, that you can love and accept yourself. And
let's talk about it. Like, let's get into the public sphere.
Yeah. Let's have an open discussion about it. So that was, I really felt proud of myself, and especially because I was still in London, I sent the video back to my parents. And of course, my parents and my ex-partner had seen me during the worst of the worst. And, they broke down in tears, and they're just so proud as well of, going from one extreme to the other, and then being a space for other people to openly share, which, again, was so humbling. I was receiving emails daily from people around the world, just thanking me and, opening up about what they were going through as well, or what they'd gone through in the past. And it's like, wow, that's that human connection that we're talking about, that they can get on the web, talk to someone that they've never met in their life, and share, their darkest elements without any fear of judgment. And, there was never going to be any judgment from my point of view. And, so that was really, really beautiful and very touching. And then from there, a few people have recreated the experiment, which again, seeing that mirror back to you of like, whoa, that's what I did. Like, now they're doing it.
Would be like
as
reliving
well.
it all over again.
Yeah. And especially, because at the end of the day, I'm still small, like, and with my body type, I probably will always be relatively small. So I can only physically represent a small margin of people. And so some people were, I guess, criticizing in some ways that, I wasn't larger or, a male or those kind of elements of things. So then seeing, I had Amy, a lady in America, get up. She was a mother, a little bit, a bigger lady. She recreated it in a country town. And, her video, I think mine had over 50 million, and hers is, I think, still going over 130 million.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's just, and from there, she's had interviews all around America. And, she was sending me such beautiful emails and messages. And it's like, I had to kind of step back sometimes and have that reality of like, you've actually changed someone's life. Like,
sure.
I don't take ownership for creativity. I think if a creative idea is going to come to this planet, it will just find a vessel to come through.
Yeah, it comes through you. Yeah.
I just happened to be the one that received that one.
Yeah.
So I never take responsibility for that, but knowing that I am part of that ripple effect
doesn't mean you should be any less proud of yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. But it does bring up an interesting topic as well that I kind of had to be confronted with afterwards, was people like, you're doing it more for a show, like you're doing it because of your ego, like. And, you know, I value criticism. You know, I think it's really beautiful that people can watch a video and not just accept it as the only truth. It's like,
which is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, those people that were getting in response, you know, making me question myself, I'm very grateful for. And I took that step back and be like, did I just do it for ego? And then kind of then had to relive some of the stuff that I went through, you know, getting up there. And it's like, I purposely didn't wear any makeup. I didn't do anything that was very extra. You know, I wasn't standing up there with like perfect lingerie or anything like that. It was like
just a normal girl.
I'm just me, and I'm just standing up there, and everyone is entitled to their opinion. And it was just, again, a lesson in self-acceptance that I was then learning afterwards through owning and taking responsibility for my actions. And again, as you said, being like, no, I am proud for the actions that I took, and if it was able to impact one person and give one person a sense of hope, you know, I've made a difference. And you know, the fact that it's made a lot more than that is even more, you know, beautiful and profound. And you know, it touched people that I couldn't have even expected either, like twofold. So that I was receiving emails from parents that had like children that were going through anorexia or bulimia or eating disorder, and you know, they were sharing that they'd showed that video to their whole parent support network, and how it'd given the parents a sense of hope that there is, you know, a different outcome of not just the fear that's kind of projected sometimes that you're only going to go down this like dark road. So that was something I could have never expected. And again, I was in tears. I was like, wow. Yeah, nice. And then the other thing that happened is I wrote a blog about the experience as well. And you can actually track where in the world that blog is being read. Right. And sure, you know, the America, Australia, England, that kind of range was getting a lot of hits. But then, you know, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, you know, places that I would have like not even expected were reading and watching this video as well. And that was just like, it shows you the power of how the internet can be used for a positive. And the fact that it somehow then ended up getting back to Amanda Palmer as well, the video. Oh, did it really? Amanda Palmer contacted me as well. Really? Awesome. Yeah, and again, this idea of 360.
That is fucking so cool.
She ended up contacting me, and I happened to be in Berlin, which is where she created her like stripping down for her fans. And I was like, I happened to be doing an interview with like a German like TV show about the self-acceptance and talking about how I was inspired by you when you're in Berlin. And like now it's just like, now I'm in Berlin. Cool. Like, it was just that 360 of like, wow, like things actually do go full circle. So definitely. Hopefully,
which would have made her feel awesome too.
Yeah. It's like, again, with music, you never know the impact or what's going to be created, or when you speak your truth, when you speak your own vulnerability, what can then occur afterwards because of that. And I really, really hope that I get a chance to meet Amanda when we go over, hopefully, to America this year.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure it'll work out. Yeah. Obviously, just stay in touch with her, I guess. And I'm sure she'd love to meet you. Like, to have a influence on someone like you that has then gone out to have an influence on so many people, that's something that I'm sure she, just from the things I've read and the things that I've seen of her in different interviews, you know, that's what she's all about, you know. So, it's important that we have those people in the world doing that sort of thing. I mean, the self-acceptance, and I guess the benefits of, like, there's definitely benefits in everything in life, but like the criticisms you would have got afterwards would have also, I guess, I'm assuming, and you'd obviously be able to answer this like better than I could, but it would have like had to bring you back to like really understanding too that self-acceptance and self-love can only really come from within you, because you're still going to have people detracting and, you know, doubting and all that sort of thing. And I mean, we had when you were talking a little bit that before, it sort of reminded me too of a mutual friend of ours, Candice, who shared her story on this podcast actually, and the venom and vitriol that came out from her just discussing her own personal experience. Not she did it from obviously it was her own subjective experience, but she looked at it in a real thorough, rational way. And it was definitely something that was quite difficult for her to face. But then in the end, it really had to help her, really did, I guess, help her to solidify her own strength. And I guess that's what it would have done for you as well in those weeks afterwards, to not only have the positive support, which I'm sure outweighed the negative support, but understand that, okay, it's great that people do accept me. There are people taking these texters and these pens and drawing love hearts on me, showing me this, but it still needs to come from within.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the really important thing of having that polarities between, positive and negative feedback is it keeps you humble. Because that's the other thing.
Keeps you centered.
When because on a global sense, you're kind of going from no one to having, hundreds of articles written about you, having interviews around the world, things like that. The ego can come up a lot of oh, look how amazing I am. And, that was kind of the reality. And then being that's also creating separation. And sure. I am no better or less than any other person, and anyone actually has the capacity or capability to do something like I did, or recreate it. And it was really important for me not to be put on a pedestal at all, because I am no different. And it's sometimes when we idolize people that creates that kind of segregation again. So that was Definitely. A really important lesson. And I think that people giving more of the critiques was a really, really good lesson to kind of make sure you didn't, become up here rather than, no, we're all level, we're all the same.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, knowing you the way I do, I'm sure that's something you would have taken in your stride and really used as a lesson, whereas other people may have just got deflated from it and thought, oh, well, what am I really doing? But yeah, to see you be able to really just move through the whole experience and really learn from it as much as you can. I mean, it must have been a very valuable experience on a whole.
And it's been a really beautiful opportunity for me to reflect, because definitely over my journey I was always about pleasing my external world, pleasing other people, and trying to get everything right and perfect, and so trying to just be no, I am actually doing my best. everyone is always doing their best, otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing the way you do it. So that was a really, nice experience to kind of come back to and make me reflect on, okay, no, I actually am doing this to deepen that sense of love so that I can be of service to other people.
Right. Nice. Yeah.
So, you can't give your heart when you can't love yourself.
Exactly. There's an analogy that I love, and friends of mine who are watching this at the moment, and even regular podcast listeners are going to roll their eyes because I use it so often. But the analogy I just love so much is, when the airplane's crashing and going down, that you need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can help anyone else. And that's just very true about life in all facets. If you can't, if you don't look after yourself first, then you're really no good to anyone else around you. It's not as black and white as that and clear cut as that, but more or less, we need to make sure we take care of ourselves as individuals and really respect ourselves and love ourselves first before we can go out and then be able to really offer someone, that true unconditional love that comes with just, loving your fellow human being. So, all right, well, perhaps we might wrap up, but before we do, could you talk about what you're doing next and coming up with next, and both yourself, individual, or as a Liberators, or however you'd like to...
How it's gone from there. So, I mean, the tour went so well, and I actually was the inspiration. After being in Europe, we inspired someone to recreate the eye-gazing experiment, and... all of a sudden we got an email being there's a couple of thousand people coming to this event. What do I do?
Shit.
And so that's actually how the World Eye Gazing Experiment came to be.
Okay.
It's because of this this other person in Europe being inspired by what we did.
Nice.
So our idea with that is, to continue on with these world experiments in different ways. So at the moment we're working on a sunshine sing-along. So we've done like a sing-along on a train or public transport before. But it's that idea that people always look for the weekend for that sense of happiness rather than on a Monday morning. Why can't this present moment be an opportunity to find a little bit of like happiness or bliss or, expression?
Definitely.
So,
and in London, they're doing those early morning, like they go before work and have dance parties, like raves at like 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh, it's so amazing.
Yeah,
Such a good idea.
We teamed up with Morning Gloryville when we were over in London.
Nice.
So that's one element as well that we kind of want to keep these connections with global entities, because we're all wanting to have these same messages, of wanting to connect human beings. So it's like, how can we make the most impact? It's actually collaborating and teaming up with other organizations.
Brilliant.
So that's really for 2016 is, okay, what connections can we make? And, we've been Skyping with America and Europe, London, and not the water. I'm getting excited. And then hopefully, we've been asked to go over and perform one of our interactive DJ sets for festivals over in America. So it's potentially on the cards, but like anything in life, you can't necessarily predict what curveballs are going to be thrown in there. So, we could go anywhere, but, it will be more on a global sense. That is really our intention of uniting on a global front and not just trying to segregate us to, we'll impact Australia or we'll impact Europe. It's like, no, let's do this all together. Yeah. And the other thing is really empowering other people. So with the global experiments, we find we're not necessarily there running it, but we're giving people the templates to step into their own leadership and their own power, so that, again, they're rewriting the way that they see themselves. Nice. So, that will impact just the way that they are, but then also how other people relate to them. Sure. Because then when you see someone, they've just, organized this incredible event, they start relating to people differently. So there's that element. And then also, I continue on with some of my yoga training, which I went to, I have been doing since I was a young age, but I will immerse myself a little bit more because, again, yoga is to unite. It's still bringing in those same messages, and I think it helps center me when there's all the chaos is going on with the Liberators. It's like, can we bring that stillness back into it? And with meditation in particular, it puts everything back into perspective again, because we can get so caught up on achieving and this to-do list of how we want to make an impact, and it's like, wow, okay, sometimes we just need to be, and our lesson is just to embrace that feminine or that nurturing element, so that you can show other people how to be that way as well, because you don't have to always be achieving or doing creative and crazy things. Sometimes it's just about nurturing yourself, and
it's about getting that balance, really.
Absolutely. So that balance for me comes by going back and being of service to my teachers in Ubud, and doing some more training, and spending some time over there in the island of the gods.
Tough.
Hard life. And then I'm doing my PhD at the moment as well, so
sure. Yeah, you'll just see how that goes over the course of the next 12 months, I guess, as these different things come up. And
if you took me back a year or two ago, there is no way that I would have thought this is how my life would have panned out. So again, trying to predict how my next year is going to be, it's just like, I don't know.
But that's what leaves me very optimistic about the future. Like our generation, it's not like our parents' generation where, they knew exactly what they'd be doing in the next 12 months, 24 months. And especially this year, we were talking about it before the podcast started. There's so many of us now, we're just like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, next week. I think I might be doing this, but who knows? And I think I can only see that breeding. There's going to be a lot of imagination and creativity coming through because of that, through these experiences that are going to open up for people. And I think it's vitally important that more and more people sort of get themselves out there, get themselves out of their comfort zone and really just see what the world is going to offer them.
Yeah, and just keep coming back to that relationship you have with yourself. Keep sharing, and I think for me, as long as I know I'm taking actions that I'm proud of
Sure.
That's my only kind of
Yeah.
navigation system, is like, if I know myself to be, you know, courageous, you know, and loving and compassionate and, you know, accepting of what is, then I know that I'm doing the best that I can, no matter what I'm doing.
Beautiful way to end the podcast, Jay. Thank you very much for being on here. It's just an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And I mean, we could go into a myriad of other conversations, but perhaps definitely we'll get you back on if you'd. I'd love to get you back on, and we'll look at the yoga meditation side of life as well, and you know how all that really sort of works and how important it is for us.
Intertwines with everything.
Yeah, with everything else as well. So yeah, we'll sort that out another time. Yeah. What do you think?
Sure. Sounds like a plan.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll put links up as well, everyone, for some of the different videos that we've discussed. And I'll put links up for, I'm assuming you guys have a website. Yeah. And do you have like a website or like your blog you were talking about?
So that's through the Liberators kind of based stuff.
Okay.
Through Pete's things, but.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll discuss that later anyway and sort out and go from there. And if have any questions about anything that we spoke about today, please let us know, and we'll be sure to get back to you. But until next time, thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone else, and we'll see you next time.